The old books in the village market. There's a small corner of a village market, tucked away in the sun-drenched central region of Vietnam, where the morning hums with the sounds of vendors shouting, the scent of dried fish, and the rhythmic whir of old motorbikes weaving through the narrow lanes. And amidst that vibrant mess, every afternoon a little girl appears, skin sunburnt, hair tied up messily, her eyes full of curiosity. She doesn't come to shop, nor to play. She comes to dig through stacks of old paper, piles of discarded cardboard, and forgotten trash bags, searching, not for food, not for coins, but for books, old books. The girl's name is Hương. She's just 10 years old. Her father is a construction worker. Her mother sells vegetables at the market. They live in a tiny house with nothing more than a wooden bed, a creaky ceiling fan, and a single yellow light bulb dangling from a wire. No air conditioning, no computer, no English books. But one afternoon, while helping her mother pack up the vegetables, Hương noticed a small booklet peeking out from a pile of scrap paper near the recycling stall. She pulled it out, dusted it off. English for Kids Level 1. The cover was torn, the pages smelled damp and moldy, but to Hương, it was a treasure chest. She clutched it in her arms like a prize, took it home, washed her hands, and opened it carefully, turning each page as if afraid the book might fall apart in her hands. From that day on, Hương started a very special journey, a journey to learn English from old forgotten books found in the corners of a village market. She had no teacher, no classes, no phone, no internet, only ragged books, a pencil, some crumpled notebook paper, and a fierce desire to learn. She taught herself in the simplest way she knew. She saw a picture of an apple, wrote down the word apple, and pronounced it apple. Saw a drawing of a cat, wrote cat and said cat. Was it wrong? Yes, but no one told her that. And more importantly, she didn't stop. Every evening, after helping her mother wash vegetables and stack baskets, Hương would sneak away to rummage through paper piles in the market. One day, she found a mini dictionary, its cover torn, the pages yellowing. But to her, it was sacred. She held it like gold. She carefully taped every ripped page using student tape her classmate gave her. Bit by bit, she began copying down words and sentences. Hello, my name is Hương. I am 10 years old. I like reading books. Then she stood in front of the mirror and repeated them over and over again. The sound wasn't perfect, but her eyes sparkled with joy. At first, the market folk chuckled at her. The little girl learning English with trash books? One fish seller laughed. She doesn't even know what she's reading, another muttered. But slowly, they began to notice. The old newspaper man started saving pages with English sections for her. The scrap collector gathered children's storybooks for her. The noodle vendor said, I saw some foreign pages near the veggie stall yesterday. Save them for you, girl. The market, dusty, noisy, chaotic, became Hung's classroom. One afternoon, Uncle Tom, a middle-aged man who had worked in Singapore, heard Hương reciting, I have a pen. He blinked, surprised. Who taught you that? He asked. I learned it from a book, she replied. From that day on, every evening, he dropped by to teach her a few more words, correcting her pronunciation gently. No formal curriculum, no whiteboard, just kindness and patience. At school, Hương didn't stand out. She wasn't good at math, nor fast in PE. But one day during English class, the teacher asked students to read a passage aloud. When it was Hung's turn, the classroom fell quiet. She read slowly, carefully, words slightly broken but full of heart. Where did you learn that? The teacher asked, eyes wide. From old books I found in the market, Hương replied. Some classmates snickered. Trash book girl, one whispered. Hương lowered her eyes, but the teacher walked over and gently placed a hand on her head. You are very special, she said. No one else learns the way you do, and still makes this much progress. Later that year, the school held an English storytelling competition. Most students were guided by private tutors. Some attended English centers. But Hương had only a mirror and her will. She walked on stage in her simple uniform, took a deep breath, and began. Good morning, everyone. My name is Hương. I want to tell you about my favorite book. I found it in the market. Her voice trembled. Her grammar wasn't perfect, but in every word, people felt her story. The hall was silent, because what Hương spoke wasn't just English. It was resilience. It was effort. It was hope. She won a consolation prize, but to her, it was the biggest victory of her life. After that, she studied even harder, Still no computer, no modern gadgets, just books, tape, mirror, and her own voice. She created her own flashcards, whispered to herself as she did chores, and imagined one day speaking English fluently. She had a dream, a simple but beautiful dream. I want to become an English teacher, to open free classes for kids like me, because old books are not useless, they're just forgotten. Then one day, a group of university students, inspired by her story on social media, came to find her. They brought her brand new English books, a small radio to play pronunciation CDs, and a pair of headphones. She turned on the radio, listened. Clear, crisp, accurate pronunciation. For the first time, she heard how real English sounded. She smiled with tears in her eyes. So this is how it sounds. Years passed, 10 years to be exact. And now, in that same market corner, stood a small room made of repurposed wood and tin. A handmade sign hung by the door. Free English class? Teacher Hương. The girl who once dug through trash piles is now a teacher. She hasn't forgotten those afternoons spent with torn pages, the smell of dried fish and sweat, the sound of vendors haggling nearby. She teaches her students everything she knows: how to read, how to speak, how to dream. One student once asked, "Teacher, how can we study English if we don't have money?" Hương smiled gently. "I studied with torn books. I didn't have money either. But if your heart wants to learn, you'll find a way." Her class has no projectors, no smartboards, but it has laughter, it has hope. It has the warmth of a heart that never gave up. Hung's story isn't a fairy tale, it's real. The journey of a child who dared to dream, dared to believe, and walked through storms, armed with nothing but love for learning and a handful of old pages. And maybe, just maybe, there's no road too far if we're willing to start, even if we're starting from an old book in a quiet village market. If you're hearing this from a small radio or watching this in a room with poor reception, we hope this story brings you a little light, because knowledge doesn't just live in fancy schools or expensive books. It lives in the heart of anyone willing to try.